Chapter 1. Introduction to Constructed Languages. Language is one of humanity's most fascinating creations, a complex, ever-evolving system that allows us to communicate ideas, express emotions, and share knowledge. While most languages develop organically over centuries, shaped by culture, geography, and history, constructed languages, or conlangs, are intentionally designed by individuals or groups. These languages are often born from creativity, curiosity, and the desire to explore what language can be. In this chapter, we'll delve into what constructed languages are, how they differ from natural languages, and trace their history, highlighting key milestones and figures in the world of language creation. What are constructed languages? Constructed languages, commonly abbreviated as conlangs, are languages that are deliberately created rather than naturally evolved. Unlike natural languages, which emerge and change over time as people interact, conlangs are designed with specific goals in mind. These goals could be artistic, philosophical, experimental, or practical. A conlang is more than just a random assortment of words. It often includes its own set of grammatical rules, vocabulary, phonetics, sounds, and even a unique writing system. Some constructed languages are created to mirror the complexity of natural languages, while others focus on simplicity, logic, or other specific characteristics. Natural languages versus constructed languages. The main difference between natural languages and constructed languages lies in their origin. Natural languages, such as English, Mandarin, or Swahili, evolve organically within communities. They are influenced by historical events, migrations, technological advancements, and interactions with other languages. Over time, these influences lead to dialects, pidgins, and creoles, adding to the diversity of human expression. In contrast, conlangs are intentionally crafted with a particular vision in mind. The creator of a conlang can decide every aspect of the language, from its phonetic inventory to its grammar and syntax. This level of control allows for unique linguistic features not commonly found in natural languages. A brief history of language construction. The idea of creating languages is not a modern phenomenon. The roots of conlanging can be traced back centuries, with examples found in religious, philosophical, and literary contexts. Ancient roots. One of the earliest examples of language construction comes from ancient philosophical traditions. In the 12th century, theologians and philosophers like Hildegard of Bingen created mystical languages, such as lingua ignota, for divine communication. These languages were often symbolic and intended for limited use. The Renaissance and Enlightenment. During the Renaissance and Enlightenment periods, thinkers began to explore constructed languages as a way to enhance human understanding. Philosophers like John Wilkins and Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz sought to create universal languages that could transcend cultural barriers and provide a logical framework for communication. These efforts often focused on simplifying grammar and vocabulary to make the languages universally accessible. The 19th and 20th centuries. The modern era of constructed languages began in the 19th century with the development of auxiliary languages aimed at facilitating international communication. One of the most famous examples is Esperanto, created by L.L. Zamenhof in 1887. Esperanto was designed to be easy to learn and politically neutral, with a hope of fostering global peace and understanding. Around the same time, other languages, such as Volapük and Interlingua, emerged, each with its own vision of a universal tongue. While these languages achieved varying degrees of success, Esperanto remains the most widely spoken auxiliary language to this day. Conlangs in fiction. The 20th century also saw the rise of constructed languages in literature and media. J.R.R. Tolkien, a philologist and author, famously created languages like Quenya and Sindarin for his Middle-earth legendarium. These languages were deeply integrated into his world-building, complete with their own histories, cultures, and linguistic evolution. In more recent years, conlangs have become a staple of science fiction and fantasy, appearing in works like Star Trek, Klingon, Game of Thrones, Dothraki and Valyrian, and Avatar, Nausicaa. These languages add depth and realism to fictional worlds, immersing audiences in their universes. The appeal of constructed languages. Why create a language? The motivations are as varied as the people who embark on this creative journey. Some conlangs are created for practical purposes, such as fostering international communication or linguistic experimentation. Others are born from artistic inspiration, providing a unique medium for storytelling or self-expression. For many, constructing a language is a way to explore the very essence of communication, how meaning is created, shared, and understood. It's a challenge that combines creativity with logic, art with science. Whether as a tool for uniting people, an integral part of a fictional world, or a personal project, conlangs continue to capture the imagination of linguists, writers, and hobbyists alike. This introduction sets the stage for understanding the rich and diverse world of constructed languages. In the next chapter, we'll explore the motivations behind creating languages and the goals that drive conlangers to undertake this fascinating endeavor. Chapter 2. Why create a language? Language is a defining feature of humanity, shaping how we think, communicate, and connect. So, why would someone feel the need to create a new one? Constructed languages, or conlangs, offer opportunities to explore creativity, address communication barriers, experiment with linguistic theories, and even delve into personal expression. This chapter explores the diverse motivations behind constructing languages, illustrating how conlanging is more than just a niche hobby. It's an art, a science, and a medium for profound expression. 1. Art and storytelling. One of the most prominent reasons for creating a language is artistic expression. A well-constructed language can enhance the depth and authenticity of a fictional world, making it feel vibrant and real. Building immersive worlds. Writers, filmmakers, and game designers often use conlangs to bring fictional settings to life. A language can reflect a culture's history, values, and worldview, making the fictional people and places more believable. Tolkien's languages. J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth languages, such as Quenya and Sindarin, are famous examples. Tolkien didn't just create a world for his stories, he created stories to showcase his languages. His languages are rooted in linguistic realism, with sound changes, grammar rules, and etymologies that mirror those of natural languages. Game of Thrones. David J. Peterson, a linguist, designed Dothraki and High Valyrian for the Game of Thrones series, adding authenticity to the cultures depicted on screen. Creative challenge. Many conlangers find joy in the creative challenge of constructing a language. The process combines art and logic, pushing creators to invent something entirely new while ensuring it feels cohesive and functional. 2. International communication. Language can unite or divide people. Miscommunication and language barriers have fueled conflicts and misunderstandings throughout history. Constructed languages aimed at bridging these gaps are known as auxiliary languages, auxlangs. Esperanto. Esperanto, created by L.L. Zamenhof in 1887, is the most successful example of an auxiliary language. Zamenhof envisioned Esperanto as a politically neutral and easy-to-learn language that could promote global peace. With its regular grammar, phonetic spelling, and vocabulary derived from European languages, Esperanto remains a symbol of international unity. Other auxlangs. While Esperanto is the most famous, it is not the only auxiliary language. Interlinguar, designed to be immediately understandable to speakers of Romance languages. Volapük. Preceding Esperanto, Volapük aimed for universality, but was criticized for its complexity. Auxlangs continue to attract individuals who dream of a world where communication transcends borders. 3. Linguistic experimentation. For linguists, constructing a language is a way to test theories, explore ideas, and push the boundaries of what language can do. These languages are often referred to as engineered languages, engelangs. Testing logical systems. Some conlangs are designed to explore logic and clarity in communication. For example, Lojpan, a language built for unambiguous expression with a grammar based on formal logic. Ithquil, an incredibly complex language designed to convey deep and nuanced ideas in as few words as possible. Exploring alternative systems. Linguists also use conlangs to experiment with linguistic structures that differ from those of natural languages. This can include creating new phonetic systems. exploring unique word orders or grammatical structures. Testing how language affects thought, linguistic relativity. 4. Personal expression. Language is deeply personal, and some conlangers create languages as a form of self-expression. A personal language can reflect its creator's identity, emotions, and worldview. A language for yourself. Some conlangers create languages solely for their own use. These private languages can be diaries, artistic outlets, or secret codes. Cultural identity. For creators from marginalized or diaspora communities, conlangs can be a way to reclaim or imagine a cultural identity. By designing a language that reflects their heritage or ideals, they can create a linguistic space where their culture thrives. 5. Education and learning. Constructing a language is a fantastic way to learn about linguistics. By building a conlang, creators gain a deeper understanding of how languages work, from phonetics and grammar to semantics and syntax. Teaching tools. Educators sometimes use conlangs to teach linguistic principles. Creating a language encourages students to think critically about linguistic systems and compare them to natural languages. Language learning. Constructing a language can also help language learners understand their target language more deeply. For example, someone learning Spanish might create a conlang with similar grammatical structures to reinforce their understanding. 6. Social and political statements. Language is inherently tied to power, identity, and culture. Constructed languages can be a form of resistance, a way to challenge existing systems, or a tool for envisioning a better future. Reclaiming identity. Conlangs like lingua ignota, created by Hildegard of Bingen, or the feminist language Ladon by Suzette Haydn-Elgin, are examples of using language to express marginalized identities or philosophies. Advocating for change. Language creation can also be a way to advocate for change. By creating a language that promotes equality, environmental awareness, or other values, conlangers can use their work as a form of activism. 7. Fun and hobby. Sometimes the reason is simple: it's fun. Creating a language combines imagination, problem-solving, and creativity. It's like crafting a puzzle where you set the rules. Many conlangers enjoy the process as a deeply satisfying and rewarding hobby. Why do you want to create a language? Every conlanger has their own motivations, and the reasons above often overlap. Whether you're driven by artistic vision, intellectual curiosity, or personal passion, constructing a language is a journey of discovery. It's an opportunity to dive into the complexities of communication and create something entirely unique, a world of words shaped by your own imagination. In the next chapter, we'll explore the different types of constructed languages, from those designed for art and storytelling to those built for logic and experimentation. Chapter 3. Types of constructed languages. Constructed languages, or conlangs, come in various forms, each designed with a specific purpose in mind. Some are crafted to enrich fictional worlds, others aim to experiment with linguistic principles, and a few strive to bridge communication gaps among people worldwide. Understanding the types of conlangs is key to appreciating their diversity and the motivations behind their creation. In this chapter, we'll explore the 3 primary categories of constructed languages: artistic languages, artlangs, auxiliary languages, auxlangs, and engineered languages, engilangs. We'll also look at some notable examples within each category to illustrate their unique characteristics. 1. Artistic languages, artlangs. Artistic languages, or artlangs, are created primarily for aesthetic or creative purposes. They are often associated with storytelling, world-building, and personal expression. These languages don't aim for practical use, but instead focus on cultural depth, beauty, and immersion. Purpose of artlangs: to enhance fictional worlds in literature, film, and games. To reflect the culture, history, and philosophy of fictional peoples. To serve as a personal artistic endeavor, expressing creativity and individuality. Characteristics of artlangs often include irregularities and naturalistic features to mimic natural languages. May have detailed histories and evolutionary paths within fictional worlds. Frequently include custom writing systems or alphabets. Notable examples: Quenya and Sindarin, The Lord of the Rings, created by J.R.R. Tolkien, These Elvish languages are perhaps the most famous artlangs. Tolkien designed them with intricate grammar and phonology, inspired by real-world languages like Finnish and Welsh. Dothraki and High Valyrian, Game of Thrones, designed by linguist David Yates Peterson. These languages add cultural depth to George R.R. Martin's fictional universe. Klingon, Star Trek's, created by linguist Marco Crand. Klingon reflects the harsh, warrior-like culture of the Klingon with its guttural sounds and complex grammar. Artlangs prioritize storytelling and cultural immersion, making them a cornerstone of modern conlanging. 2. Auxiliary languages, Auxlangs. Auxiliary languages, or Auxlangs, are created with the goal of facilitating communication between people who speak different native languages. These languages often aim to be easy to learn, politically neutral, and universally accessible. Purpose of Auxlangs: to serve as a neutral medium for international communication, to promote global peace and understanding, to simplify learning and overcome language barriers. Characteristics of Auxlangs: designed to be easy to learn, often with regular grammar and phonetic spelling. Borrow vocabulary and structures from existing languages to aid comprehension. Focus on practicality over aesthetic or experimental goals. Notable examples: Esperanto. Created by L.L. Zamenhof in 1887, Esperanto is the most successful auxiliary language. Its simple grammar, phonetic spelling, and vocabulary drawn from European languages make it accessible to millions of speakers worldwide. Interlingua. Designed by the International Auxiliary Language Association, Interlingua uses simplified grammar and a vocabulary derived from Romance languages, making it easy for speakers of these languages to understand. Volapük. Preceding Esperanto, Volapük was created by Johann Martin Schleyer in 1879. While it initially gained traction, its complex grammar hindered its long-term success. Auxlangs are motivated by a vision of global unity, offering a practical solution to the challenges of multilingual communication. 3. Engineered languages, Engelangs. Engineered languages, or Engelangs, are constructed to test linguistic theories, explore philosophical ideas, or achieve a specific design goal. These languages often emphasize logic, precision, or experimental features. Purpose of Engelangs: to explore the limits and possibilities of language design, to test linguistic, cognitive, or philosophical concepts, to create logical systems for precise or unambiguous communication. Characteristics of Engelangs: may prioritize structure and functionality over naturalism or aesthetic appeal, often incorporate innovative grammatical or phonological features, can be highly complex, focusing on efficiency, logic, or alternative linguistic paradigms. Notable examples: Logpin, a logical language designed to eliminate ambiguity. Its grammar is based on predicate logic, making it ideal for exploring philosophical and computational ideas. Ithquil. Created by John Quixote, Ithquil is an extraordinarily complex language designed to convey subtle and nuanced meanings with minimal words. Toki Pona, a minimalist language with only about 120 root words, Toki Pona explores the idea of simplicity in communication. Its philosophy emphasizes clarity and reduction of complexity. Engelangs are often intellectual exercises, pushing the boundaries of what language can achieve. 4. Blurring the lines. While the three main types of conlangs, artlangs, auxlangs, and engelangs, serve distinct purposes, the boundaries between them are not always clear. Many conlangs borrow elements from multiple categories, creating hybrid forms. Examples of hybrids: Esperanto as art. While Esperanto is primarily an auxlang, its use in poetry and music has given it artistic significance. Engelong features in artlangs. Some artlangs incorporate engineered features for added realism or to reflect cultural philosophies in their fictional worlds. Toki Pona's artistic minimalism. Although designed as an engelong, Toki Pona's simplicity and philosophy give it an artistic quality. The flexibility of conlangs allows creators to blend styles and purposes, leading to innovative and unique linguistic creations. Summary: constructed languages come in many forms, each serving different purposes and appealing to different audiences. Artistic languages enrich fictional worlds and storytelling, auxiliary languages aim to unite people through communication, and engineered languages push the boundaries of linguistic and philosophical exploration. By understanding the types of conlangs and their unique characteristics, aspiring conlangers can better decide which path aligns with their goals and inspirations. In the next chapter, we'll dive into the fundamental elements of a constructed language, exploring how phonetics, grammar, syntax, and writing systems come together to create a cohesive linguistic system. Chapter 4. Elements of a constructed language. Creating a constructed language is like building a house. It requires a solid foundation and carefully crafted components that work together to form a cohesive whole. Each language is made up of interconnected elements, from the sounds we hear to the way sentences are structured and written. In this chapter, we'll explore the essential building blocks of a language, breaking them down into 5 key areas: phonetics and phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and orthography. Together, these components define how a language sounds, looks, and functions. 1. Phonetics and phonology. Every language begins with sound. Phonetics deals with the physical sound of speech, while phonology focuses on how those sounds function within a language. In a conlang, phonetics and phonology define the language's sound system. Phonetic inventory. Decide which sounds, consonants, and vowels your language will use. Consider unique or unusual sounds to give your language a distinct character. Example: Quenya uses a harmonious mix of vowels to create a melodic sound. Phonotactics. Determine how sounds can be combined. For example, some languages allow consonant clusters, like STR in English, while others do not. Example: Japanese avoids complex clusters, favoring simpler syllable structures. Prosody. Define the rhythm, stress, and intonation of your language. Example: The Klingon language has a harsh, guttural prosody, reflecting the Klingon culture's warrior ethos. Sound is often the first element of a conlang that others will notice, so choosing your phonetic and phonological rules carefully can set the tone for the entire language. 2. Morphology. Morphology is the study of how words are formed and structured. In a conlang, morphology determines how smaller units of meaning, called morphemes, are combined to create words. Analytic versus synthetic languages. Decide how much information each word will convey. Analytic languages, like Mandarin, rely on separate words to express meaning. Synthetic languages, like Latin, use inflections and word endings. Agglutinative versus fusional morphology. Agglutinative languages add morphemes in a predictable way. Example: Turkish. Fusional languages merge morphemes, making them harder to separate. Example: Russian. Example morphological choices in conlangs. Esperanto uses agglutinative morphology, with regular suffixes for tense, plurality, and word types. Ithquil combines morphemes in complex ways to convey dense information in a single word. Morphology shapes the field of your language and can make it simple or intricate depending on your goals. 3. Syntax. Syntax governs the structure of sentences in a language, how words are arranged to convey meaning. In a conlang, syntax defines the rules for combining words into phrases and sentences. Word order. Decide the standard order of subject, verb, and object. SVO. Subject, verb, object. I eat apples. English. SOV. Subject, object, verb. I apples eat. Japanese. Other orders, like VSO, verb, subject, object, are less common but can add uniqueness to your conlang. Grammar rules. Define how to form questions, negations, and compound sentences. Example: In Klingon, word order changes based on whether a sentence is a statement or a question. Agreement and marking. Determine whether verbs agree with subjects or objects in number, gender, or case. Example: In German, articles change depending on the grammatical case of the noun. Your syntax will influence how naturalistic or alien your language feels, as well as how easy it is to learn. 4. Semantics. Semantics is the study of meaning, how words and sentences convey ideas. In a conlang, semantics involves deciding how concepts will be expressed and how specific or abstract the language will be. Vocabulary and meaning. Create a lexicon dictionary for your conlang. Choose whether to have many specific words like English or rely on context and compound words like toki pona. Cultural influence. Reflect cultural values in your vocabulary. Example, if your fictional culture values the sea, you might create many words for ocean-related concepts. Polysemy and ambiguity. Decide whether words will have multiple meanings. Example, in English, banks can mean a financial institution or the side of a river. Semantics ties your language to its cultural and philosophical roots, shaping how speakers perceive the world. 5. Orthography. Orthography refers to how a language is written. It includes the script, symbols, and rules for spelling and punctuation. A conlang's writing system can add depth and character, especially in a fictional context. Script design. Choose an existing writing system, like Latin or Cyrillic, or invent a unique script. Example, Tolkien's Tengwar script for Elvish languages. Phonemic versus logographic writing. Phonemic. Each symbol represents a sound, e.g., English. Logographic. Each symbol represents a word or idea, e.g., Chinese. Directionality. Decide whether your language is written left to right, right to left, or vertically. Example, Arabic is written right to left, while traditional Mongolian is written vertically. Stylistic choices. Add artistic flourishes to your script to reflect the culture of the language's speakers. Example, the intricate calligraphy of Arabic scripts. Orthography can make your conlang visually striking and memorable, adding an extra layer of authenticity to your creation. Integrating the elements. The magic of constructing a language lies in how these elements interact. Phonetics influences orthography, morphology impacts syntax, and semantics ties everything together. By carefully designing each component and ensuring they work harmoniously, you can create a language that feels real and functional. In the next chapter, we'll walk through the process of creating your own language, combining these elements into a step-by-step guide that brings your linguistic vision to life. Chapter 5. Building your own language. Now that we've explored the fundamental elements of a language, it's time to put all this knowledge into practice and start creating your own conlang. The process of language construction can be complex, but by breaking it down into manageable steps, you'll find that you can create a cohesive and functional language that reflects your unique vision. In this chapter, we will guide you through the essential steps of creating your own language, from the initial brainstorming phase to the final touches. 1. Define the purpose and context of your language. Before you start inventing sounds and grammar rules, it's important to consider the purpose and context of your language. Why are you creating it? What role will it serve? The answers to these questions will guide many of your decisions throughout the language construction process. Ask yourself, is your language for a fictional world, such as in literature, film, or games? Is it meant to be an international auxiliary language, facilitating global communication? Are you experimenting with linguistic theories, or simply creating a personal language for fun? Will the language reflect a specific culture, philosophy, or worldview? Once you've defined the purpose, you'll have a clear vision of the features your language should include and the tone it should convey. A language designed for an alien species might sound very different from one meant for an international community. 2. Decide on phonetics and phonology. The first step in constructing a language is deciding how it will sound. This includes selecting the sounds, phonemes, your language will use, as well as how these sounds will interact with one another. Create a phonetic inventory. Start by selecting consonants and vowels that will make up your language. Consider how complex or simple you want your sound system to be. A language with many consonants and vowels might sound more like English, while a language with fewer phonemes may feel more exotic or alien. Use resources like the International Phonetic Alphabet, IPA, to guide you in selecting sounds. Phonotactics. Define how these sounds can be arranged together in words. Decide whether your language will allow complex consonant clusters or whether it will favor simpler, more open syllables. For example, Japanese tends to avoid consonant clusters, whereas Russian and English often include them. Stress and intonation. Determine how stress, emphasis on syllables, will affect words in your language. Will certain syllables be stressed? Decide on the intonation patterns. Will your language have rising intonation for questions, or is it more tonal, like Mandarin, where pitch affects meaning? By setting up these phonetic rules early, you will create a strong foundation for your language that will influence the way it sounds and feels. 3. Develop the grammar and syntax. The next step is to create the structure of your language, focusing on grammar and syntax. This will determine how words are formed, how sentences are structured, and how meaning is conveyed. Word order. Decide on the basic sentence structure of your language, such as subject-verb-object, SVO, or subject-object-verb, SOV. Think about whether your language will allow for flexibility in word order, as Latin and ancient Greek do, or whether it will have a strict word order, like English. Consider how your word order might affect the meaning of a sentence. Parts of speech. Define how your language will handle nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and other parts of speech. Will your language have grammatical categories like gender, case, or number, singular/plural? For example, many languages like Spanish have gendered nouns, masculine and feminine, while others like English don't. Consider whether your language will have specific verb tenses, past, present, future, or aspects, completed versus ongoing actions. Inflection and word formation. Determine whether your language will have inflections, changes in the form of a word based on its role in a sentence, like verb conjugation or noun declension. For example, in Latin, amare means to love, but it changes to amavi to mean I loved or amatus to mean loved, as an adjective. If your language is agglutinative, like Turkish, you may create words by adding regular suffixes. If it is fusional, like Spanish, one morpheme can carry multiple meanings. Grammatical relations. Define how relationships between words are expressed. Will your language use prepositions like on or under, postpositions like in Turkish, or inflections like Latin's case system? Think about how you will mark subject-object agreement, whether through word order, affixes, or separate pronouns. 4. Create vocabulary. Once you have the basic structure of your language, it's time to start building your vocabulary. The lexicon of your language will depend on the culture, environment, and worldview of its speakers. Core vocabulary. Start by creating basic words for everyday concepts, like numbers, colors, family terms, and common objects. These will serve as the foundation for more complex vocabulary. You can derive words by modifying existing roots or create entirely new ones. Think about how your language's phonetic system will affect word formation. Cultural influence. If your language reflects a specific culture, think about the concepts that are important to that culture. A language for an underwater civilization might have many words for water, sea creatures, and underwater geography. For example, in Tolkien's Elvish languages, nature-related vocabulary is central, as elves are closely connected to the natural world. Word creation. Develop rules for creating new words. Will you compound two smaller words together, like toothbrush, or use an entirely different method of word formation? You may also decide to create multiple synonyms for certain words, allowing your language to express subtle differences in meaning. 5. Design the writing system. The writing system adds an extra layer of depth to your language. It can be as simple or as complex as you wish, ranging from a basic alphabet to a more intricate script. Choose a script type. Decide whether your language will use an alphabet, like English, a syllabary, where symbols represent syllables, like in Japanese hiragana, or logograms, symbols representing whole words, like in Chinese. You can also create a unique script entirely, taking inspiration from historical scripts or inventing something new. Writing direction. Will your language be written left to right, like English, right to left, like Arabic, or top to bottom, like traditional Chinese? Think about how the directionality of the script might influence the aesthetic of your language. Punctuation and spacing. Decide how sentences are separated, whether with spaces between words, like English, or using a more integrated writing system, like Chinese. Create punctuation marks or other symbols to reflect the tone or structure of your language. 6. Refine and expand your language. After you've created the foundational elements of your language, it's important to refine and expand it. This involves checking for consistency, expanding the vocabulary, and continuing to develop the culture and context of your language. Consistency and coherence. Ensure that the rules of your language are consistent. For example, if you've chosen a particular word order or phonological pattern, make sure it applies throughout the language. Avoid contradictions, such as having a language that uses both complex consonant clusters and an overly simple vowel system. Expansion. As you use your language more, you'll naturally come across gaps that need to be filled, whether with new vocabulary, grammatical rules, or pronunciation changes. Allow your language to evolve organically. It might start as a small project and gradually grow into something far more intricate. Conclusion. Creating your own language is a complex, exciting, and deeply creative process. By following these steps, defining the purpose of your language, designing its sounds, establishing its grammar and syntax, building its vocabulary, and developing its writing system, you can create a rich, functional language that feels authentic and meaningful. In the next chapter, we will look at how to use your language in practice, including tips for writing stories, translating texts, and speaking your language with others. Chapter 6. Using your language. Practical applications. After months of careful planning, designing, and refining, your constructed language is finally coming together. But a language is not just a theoretical creation. Its true value lies in how it is used. In this chapter, we will explore practical ways to bring your conlang to life, focusing on writing, speaking, and translating. These skills will help you fully realize your language and connect with others who share your interest. 1. Writing in your language. Writing is one of the most effective ways to use and further develop your language. Whether you're writing short stories, poetry, or just jotting down your thoughts, writing in your conlang is an essential tool for honing both its structure and vocabulary. Start with simple sentences. Begin by constructing basic sentences using the vocabulary and grammatical rules you've already established. For example, English, I love the stars. Conlang, I stars love, depending on your word order rules. This exercise helps reinforce your understanding of the language and allows you to practice applying grammar rules. Expand to complex sentences. As you become more comfortable with the structure of your language, begin to write more complex sentences. Include conjunctions, subordinate clauses, and different tenses to express more nuanced ideas. For example, English, I will go to the forest if it doesn't rain. Conlang, I forest go will if rain not. Expanding your sentence structure will challenge your understanding of the language and help you identify areas that need further refinement. Write narratives and stories. Writing a short story or narrative in your conlang allows you to use the language in context. Start with a simple plot and try to tell it using your conlang. This exercise helps you explore the vocabulary and grammar in real-world situations. For example, you can write a diary entry, a letter, or even a short dialogue between characters. This helps you stretch the limits of your language while keeping it grounded in practical use. Create a glossary. As you write more, you will encounter new ideas, objects, and concepts that need words. Keep a running list of words and their meanings. This glossary will not only help you expand your vocabulary but also maintain consistency across your writing. 2. Speaking your language. While writing is a crucial skill for any language, speaking your conlang is where it really comes alive. Speaking allows you to practice pronunciation, fluency, and verbal communication. If you're serious about using your language in conversation, there are several steps you can take to bring it into the spoken realm. Pronunciation practice. The first step in speaking your language is getting comfortable with its sounds. You should regularly practice the phonetic inventory of your language, how each consonant and vowel should sound, including any unique or difficult sounds you've chosen. Use the International Phonetic Alphabet, IPA, to represent sounds consistently. Record yourself speaking and compare your pronunciation to the rules you've set for your language. Practice simple phrases. Just like with writing, start by practicing simple phrases. Use greetings, basic questions, and everyday expressions to get used to the flow of your language. For example, hello, how are you? What's your name? I am happy to meet you. These simple phrases will help you internalize the grammar and word order while also practicing pronunciation. Develop conversations. As you build confidence, try to have full conversations in your conlang. This might start as a one-sided dialogue with you speaking both parts, but you can slowly progress to speaking with other people, real or imagined. This is an excellent way to reinforce the rules and structure of your language. You can simulate conversations by imagining dialogues between different characters in a story, or even practicing thinking in your language as you go about daily activities. Join online language communities. There are numerous online communities and forums for conlangers, people who create languages, where you can interact with others who share an interest in constructed languages. Websites like the Conlang subreddit, ConlangL, and the Zompist Bulletin offer spaces where you can practice speaking, share your creations, and get feedback. Some conlangers even form language exchange groups where participants practice speaking in their respective languages. 3. Translating texts. One of the most rewarding ways to use your language is by translating existing texts, whether from your native language or from another language, into your conlang. Translation helps you expand your vocabulary and gain a deeper understanding of your language's structure. This practice also reveals gaps in your lexicon, prompting you to create new words or refine old ones. Start with simple texts. Begin by translating short sentences, poems, or even nursery rhymes. These are often simple in structure, making them easier to translate. This will also give you practice in expressing basic ideas in your conlang, while helping you think creatively about vocabulary and syntax. Translate famous quotes or proverbs. Translate quotes or proverbs from well-known figures, literature, or your favorite books. These will not only challenge your language skills, but will also help you express complex ideas concisely. For example, to be or not to be, that is the question. Actions speak louder than words. Translating philosophical or literary texts into your language adds a layer of depth and purpose to your conlang. Poetry and song lyrics. Poetry is an excellent medium for testing the expressiveness of your conlang. Songs and poems often require you to stretch the limits of vocabulary, rhythm, and emotional resonance. Translating or composing poetry in your conlang can help you understand how well your language conveys abstract ideas and feelings. Literary translation. As your conlang becomes more developed, you might feel comfortable translating entire short stories or excerpts from novels. While this can be a more time-consuming and complex endeavor, it offers invaluable insight into how well your language handles narrative structure, emotion, and characterization. Writing entire works of fiction in your conlang is the ultimate test of its functionality and expressiveness. 4. Creating a language community. A great way to keep your conlang alive and continue to develop it is by sharing it with others. Creating a community around your language can provide you with valuable feedback, help you refine your language, and give you an outlet for your creativity. Create a website or blog. Consider creating a website or blog to share your conlang's development. Post about its grammar, vocabulary, writing system, and example sentences. Invite others to contribute by creating learning materials, practicing with you, or offering feedback. Publish a dictionary or grammar guide. Once your language has grown sufficiently, consider publishing a dictionary or grammar guide to help others learn. This could be a comprehensive online resource, a downloadable PDF, or even a printed book. This is a great way to establish your language and invite others to learn and use it. Organize meetups or virtual events. Whether in person or online, meetups allow conlang creators and enthusiasts to practice their languages, exchange ideas, and discuss their projects. You can organize virtual gatherings where people meet on platforms like Discord, Zoom, or Skype to practice speaking your language and share their own conlangs. Participate in conlang competitions and events. Look for conlang competitions and events where conlangers can showcase their languages. Events like the Language Creation Society's annual conlang contest or Clipchampm allow you to present your conlang to a larger audience, meet fellow language creators, and participate in language-related activities. 5. Maintaining your language. Like any skill, language use requires practice and consistency. Even after you've created your conlang, it's important to keep using it regularly to ensure it stays alive and continues to evolve. Daily practice. Set aside time each day or week to practice your conlang, whether by writing, speaking, or translating. Consistent practice will help you internalize the rules and keep the language fresh in your mind. Expand the language over time. As you continue to use your conlang, you'll inevitably encounter situations where new words, grammar, or structures are needed. Don't be afraid to evolve your language over time, adding new vocabulary, tweaking grammatical rules, or even inventing new ways to express ideas. Conclusion: using your conlang is the ultimate test of its functionality, beauty, and expressiveness. By writing, speaking, and translating, you breathe life into your creation, making it more than just a theoretical exercise. Whether you're engaging in casual conversation, crafting a poem, or translating your favorite book, you'll find that using your language is not just about structure, it's about communication and connection. In the next chapter, we'll look at advanced language development techniques, including how to refine your language for use in larger projects, like films or games, and how to further expand its reach to a global community of conlang enthusiasts. Chapter 7: Advanced Language Development Techniques. In the previous chapters, we have laid a solid foundation for constructing and using your own language. Now, we will explore more advanced techniques for refining your conlang and expanding its application, especially if you want to take your language to the next level. Whether you're planning to incorporate your language into a larger world-building project, create media such as films or video games, or develop a fully functional language that could be used in global communication, advanced language development allows you to push the boundaries of your creation. 1. Expanding vocabulary with precision and consistency. As your language grows, you will inevitably encounter gaps in vocabulary. This can be especially challenging as your language begins to be used in more complex contexts, such as literature, philosophy, or technical subjects. Expanding your vocabulary without losing consistency is a delicate balance, but with a few strategies, you can ensure that your lexicon remains cohesive. Word creation strategies. When you need a new word, there are a few strategies you can use. Root words. You can create new words by combining existing roots in your language. For example, if you have a root for fire and a root for light, you could combine them to form a new word meaning flame or light of fire. Compounding. Like in English, e.g., toothbrush. Compounding allows you to create new words by joining two or more smaller words. Borrowing from other languages. Sometimes, it's useful to borrow ideas from other languages, adapting them to your phonological system. This helps enrich your vocabulary, but be careful not to create too many borrowings that might stray too far from the essence of your language. Maintain consistent sound patterns. As you create new words, ensure they align with your language's phonotactic rules, the rules of sound combinations and syllables. For example, if your language avoids certain consonant clusters or only uses specific vowel combinations, your new vocabulary should respect these patterns. This consistency helps maintain the authenticity of your language and ensures it sounds cohesive. Word formation rules. Establish clear rules for word formation. Decide on how prefixes, suffixes, and infixes can modify a root word. By having regular patterns for adding meaning, you can easily generate new words that feel organic. For example, in a hypothetical language, the suffix ka could indicate a diminutive form, so house could become houseka to mean a small or cozy house. Create verb conjugations, noun declensions, and adjective forms that remain consistent. Keep a list of your affixes and how they work to ensure you maintain a structured approach. Specialized vocabulary for culture or technology. If your language is part of a fictional culture, such as a fantasy or science fiction world, you will need to create specialized terms. For instance, if your conlang is spoken by a technologically advanced society, you might need to invent terms for devices or scientific concepts that don't exist in other languages. These terms must still adhere to your phonological and grammatical rules, but can be influenced by the unique features of your imagined world. In the fictional world of Star Trek, the Vulcan language has terms for concepts such as mind meld that don't exist in real-world languages. Similarly, you may need to think outside the box when creating words for new technologies or phenomena. 2. Refining grammar and syntax. Once your vocabulary has expanded, you may find that some grammatical structures need refinement. Language systems tend to evolve and become more intricate over time, especially if you want a language to sound more realistic or sophisticated. Fine-tuning syntax. Word order variations. If you initially chose a simple SVO, subject-verb-object, order, consider experimenting with other syntactic structures, such as SOV or VSO. For example, in a language that has flexible word order, you might create rules for shifting word order to indicate emphasis or focus. Modifiers and adjectives. Explore how adjectives interact with nouns. Will your language use adjectives before or after the noun, like English versus French? Will adjectives have different forms based on number or gender? Questions and negation. In many languages, word order changes to form questions, e.g., English, do you like pizza? Versus, you like pizza? In other languages. Similarly, decide how negation works in your language, whether through a dedicated word, a suffix, or an inversion of word order. Advanced verb conjugation. In some languages, verbs are highly inflected for tense, aspect, mood, person, and number. If your language is simple, you may have only a few tenses, but in more complex languages, you may want to introduce verb forms that indicate different nuances, such as habitual actions, ongoing actions, or future intentions. For example, in addition to past, present, and future tenses, you could include aspects like continuous, action in progress, perfect, completed action with relevance to the present, or subjunctive, action that is hypothetical or desired. Politeness and formality. Some languages, like Japanese or Korean, have varying levels of politeness based on the social status of the people involved. If your conlang is intended for a culture with formal or hierarchical structures, think about how politeness and formality are encoded into the language. This could affect verb conjugation, pronouns, and even the vocabulary used in different contexts. Tense, aspect, and mood. Consider the temporal and emotional depth of your language. Does your language have one simple tense for all actions? Or does it distinguish between actions that have already happened, actions that are ongoing, and actions that are about to happen? You may also want to implement mood, such as indicative, imperative, or subjunctive, to express commands, wishes, or hypothetical situations. 3. Creating a writing system and orthography. If your conlang is going to be used in literature, media, or other visual forms, you will need a writing system that reflects its aesthetic and functional qualities. A writing system can make your language feel more immersive and authentic, especially when used in stories, games, or films. Refining script design. If you haven't already, consider creating a more detailed and visually appealing writing system. Does your conlang have a unique alphabet, syllabary, or logographic system? Develop the shapes of the letters or symbols to reflect the cultural and aesthetic values of your speakers. Calligraphy and handwriting. If your language is intended for fictional characters to write by hand, think about how the written script might evolve in casual versus formal writing. You may also consider whether characters write from left to right, top to bottom, or in another direction entirely. Typographical considerations. If your language is going to be used in digital media, books, or subtitles, think about the typography that represents the written form. You can create or adapt fonts to suit your language's aesthetic, ensuring that the symbols align with the culture you've created. Some creators even design their own fonts for their languages. Script for the masses. If you want others to use your language, consider making it accessible. You can create a standard alphabet or script that anyone can easily learn to write and read. This will involve defining how each sound is represented by letters or symbols and making the system as intuitive as possible. 4. Integration with world-building projects. Incorporating your conlang into larger world-building projects, such as novels, films, games, or even virtual worlds, is one of the most rewarding aspects of conlang creation. This chapter would be incomplete without understanding how your language can serve as a vital element of a larger narrative or immersive world. Cultural context. Your conlang should feel deeply connected to the culture and environment of the people who speak it. What is the worldview of the speakers? How does their environment influence their language? If you're creating a language for an alien species, think about how their biology and environment might shape their communication. For example, a species with heightened senses of smell might use scent-based communication, while a species with no vocal cords might rely on sign language or telepathy. Language in literature and media. When using your conlang in a fictional narrative, remember that the language should enrich the story without distracting from it. Consider how much of the language you want to reveal to your audience. Some creators prefer to keep the conlang mysterious, using it sparingly, while others incorporate it into dialogue and world building. The key is balance. Too much conlang may overwhelm readers or viewers, while too little may feel like a missed opportunity for immersion. Games and interactive media. If your language is to be used in video games, interactive fiction, or other forms of media, think about how the language will be integrated into the game mechanics. For example, a language system in a game could allow players to unlock new words and phrases as they progress through the game. Consider also how spoken or written conlangs can be used as part of puzzles or lore within the game world. 5. Refining and iterating on your language. As you continue to use your language in these more complex projects, you'll likely encounter issues that require refinement or even complete overhauls. This is completely normal. Language evolves over time, and your conlang will evolve too. Feedback and collaboration. Share your language with others to get constructive feedback. Online communities of conlang enthusiasts, world builders, and linguists can provide valuable insights that will help you refine your language. Collaboration can also help take your language to new heights, especially if you're working on a large-scale project like a novel or film. Collaborating with others ensures that your language remains functional, immersive, and true to the culture it represents. Keep iterating. Don't be afraid to change things up as your language grows. The most successful conlangs evolve over time, improving in depth and breadth. Every new idea or world-building detail you come up with may require you to tweak your language, and that's part of the creative process. Conclusion. Creating a fully functional, complex conlang is an ambitious, but incredibly rewarding endeavor. By expanding vocabulary, refining grammar, creating a writing system, and integrating your language into larger projects, you will bring your conlang to life in meaningful ways. As you continue to develop your language, keep in mind that the process is ever-evolving. Just like the cultures and people who speak real-world languages, your conlang will grow, change, and adapt over time, reflecting your creativity and vision. In the next chapter, we will discuss how to share your language with the world, create resources for learners, and perhaps even teach your language to others. Chapter 8. Sharing your language with the world. 1. Building an online presence. The internet is an ideal platform for sharing your conlang, as it allows you to reach a global audience. There are several ways to create an online presence that showcases your language and engages others who share your passion for conlangs. Creating a website or blog. Having your own website or blog dedicated to your conlang is one of the most effective ways to present it to the world. This gives you a space to explain the origins, rules, and features of your language, while also allowing you to update it regularly with new developments. You can post grammar guides, detailed explanations of the syntax, phonology, and morphology of your language. Vocabulary lists, a growing list of words and their meanings to help learners build their lexicon. Cultural context, posts about the culture and people who speak the language, tying the linguistic features to their fictional or real-world context. Creative works, share stories, poems, or translations you've created using your language. This will allow others to see how your language works in context. Social media platforms. Social media is a powerful tool for reaching a wider audience. Platforms like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok are great for sharing smaller updates, engaging with followers, and showcasing your language's development. Twitter/Facebook. Share short sentences or phrases in your language, engage in conlang-related discussions, and connect with other creators. Instagram/TikTok. Post visual content like infographics, language charts, or short videos explaining your language's features. TikTok can be an especially fun way to share pronunciation guides or showcase quick language lessons. Online communities and forums. Join conlang-focused communities and forums, such as the Conlang subreddit, the Language Creation Society, LCS, forums, or Discord servers. These spaces provide opportunities to engage with like-minded creators, get feedback, and share your conlang in a supportive environment. Conlang Reddit. Post updates, ask for feedback, and share resources with a community that understands the nuances of conlang creation. LCS. The Language Creation Society hosts a variety of resources, contests, and collaborative opportunities to help you grow your language and network with other creators. 2. Creating educational resources. To make your language accessible to others, creating educational materials is crucial. This will allow people to learn and engage with your language, and it will make your conlang feel more complete and usable. Grammar and syntax guides. One of the most important resources you can create is a comprehensive grammar guide. This document should break down the rules of your language, from phonology and morphology to syntax and sentence construction. Phonology and pronunciation include a clear explanation of your language's sound system, as well as an IPA, International Phonetic Alphabet, transcription and examples of how each sound is pronounced. Syntax and sentence structure. Provide examples of different sentence structures and word order. Discuss how your language handles negation, questions, relative clauses, and subordinate clauses. Verb conjugation and tense. Offer detailed information on how verbs conjugate for tense, aspect, mood, and person. This is often one of the more complicated aspects of a language, so clarity here is essential. Vocabulary lists and flashcards. Create an organized list of vocabulary words and their meanings. This will help learners build their lexicon. You can even categorize words based on themes, such as numbers, colors, animals, or emotions, to help learners expand their knowledge. Online flashcards. Use platforms like Anki or Quizlet to create interactive flashcards that people can use to study your language. These platforms allow you to upload vocabulary lists, include audio for pronunciation, and enable learners to review and test themselves. Audio and pronunciation guides. Language learners often struggle with pronunciation, especially with unfamiliar sounds. Creating audio resources is an excellent way to help learners master the sounds of your language. Record yourself reading sentences in your language, focusing on clarity and the correct pronunciation of each word. Create videos or audio clips where you explain how certain sounds are produced, especially if your language includes difficult or unique phonemes. Phonetic transcriptions. Include IPA transcriptions next to audio recordings to make the pronunciation process easier for learners to follow. Workbooks and practice sheets. Design worksheets or workbooks that allow learners to practice their writing, grammar, and vocabulary skills. These can include exercises like fill in the blanks, sentence construction, translation tasks, and word matching. Make sure your exercises increase in difficulty over time, starting with basic vocabulary and grammar and progressing to more complex sentence structures and conversations. Translation exercises. To help learners build their skills in translation, create a series of short translation exercises. Start with simple sentences in a natural language, like English, and ask learners to translate them into your conlang. You can also include the reverse. Provide sentences in your conlang and ask learners to translate them back into a natural language. These exercises help reinforce grammar, syntax, and vocabulary usage in context. 3. Engaging with the conlang community. Once you've begun sharing your conlang, it's important to foster a community around it. Engaging with others can help you improve your language, find inspiration, and learn from others' experiences. Feedback and critique. Engage with other conlangers by sharing your work and asking for feedback. Constructive criticism is valuable for spotting inconsistencies or areas where your language might need improvement. Be open to feedback and use it as an opportunity to refine your language further. Collaborative projects. Collaborating with other conlang creators on shared projects can help you build a network and learn new techniques. You might join a world-building project, create a conlang for a game or film, or even co-author a fictional dictionary or a language guide. Online forums, social media, and collaborative platforms like Discord offer opportunities to connect with others and work together on conlang-related initiatives. Conlang contests and events. Participate in conlang competitions and events to test your language and meet other creators. These events often have specific themes or challenges, such as creating a language for an alien species or translating a poem into your conlang. Competing in these events allows you to showcase your language and gain valuable experience. Events like the annual Language Creation Conference, LangCon, or the Conlang Relay are great opportunities to share your Conlang and interact with others in the community. Teaching and language exchanges. If you feel comfortable, offer to teach your language in an informal setting or even set up language exchange sessions. Language exchanges are an excellent way to practice speaking your Conlang, as well as to help others learn it. You can teach others your language through simple lessons, games, or casual conversation. Some creators even host online or in-person classes where people can learn Conlangs, including your own. 4. Publishing your language. If you want your Conlang to reach a wider audience, publishing it is a great way to make it accessible to more people. Publishing can take several forms, from traditional books to digital resources. Self-publishing books or ebooks. Once your language is developed enough, consider writing and publishing a book that details the grammar, syntax, and vocabulary of your Conlang. Self-publishing platforms like Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing, KDP, or Lulu make it easy to produce physical or digital copies of your language guide. You could also create a Conlang dictionary or a collection of translated works in your language. Open source resources. If you prefer to keep your Conlang open and accessible, consider publishing your resources on platforms like GitHub, Google Drive, or a personal website. This allows others to freely use, adapt, and share your language while also contributing to its development. Many Conlangers share their work openly, providing downloadable PDFs of their grammar guides, vocabulary lists, and other resources. Crowdfunding for language projects. If you have a particularly ambitious language project, such as creating a film, video game, or extensive series of educational resources, consider crowdfunding your project through platforms like Kickstarter or Patreon. These platforms allow supporters to help fund the development of your language and its applications while also offering perks and rewards for backers. You could offer language lessons, early access to materials, or even exclusive content for those who support your Conlang financially. 5. Promoting your Conlang. As your language takes shape, it's important to promote it in a way that generates interest and excitement. Promoting your Conlang will help it grow and attract learners, collaborators, and fans. Language challenges and hashtags. Participate in or create language challenges on platforms like Twitter or Instagram. For example, challenge people to post a sentence in your Conlang every day for a week. Using a unique hashtag, e.g., #MyConlang, will help spread awareness and create a sense of community. Conlang videos and tutorials. Share tutorials, pronunciation guides, and language lessons on platforms like YouTube or TikTok. These videos can serve as both educational resources and promotional material for your language, helping to generate interest and attract learners. Interviews and guest posts. Consider interviewing other Conlang creators or allowing guest writers to contribute to your website or social media. These collaborations help promote your language and bring fresh perspectives to your project. Conclusion. Sharing your Conlang with the world is an exciting next step that allows your creation to grow and evolve. By building an online presence, creating educational resources, engaging with the Conlang community, and publishing your language, you can ensure that your Conlang reaches its full potential. Whether you're teaching others, collaborating with fellow creators, or promoting your language, the process of sharing is just as rewarding as the creation itself. In the next chapter, we will explore how to maintain and expand your Conlang over time, ensuring that it remains a living, dynamic part of your creative journey. Chapter 9. Maintaining and expanding your Conlang. Creating a constructed language, Conlang, is a significant accomplishment, but the journey doesn't end once your language is developed and shared. A language, like any other living thing, must grow and evolve over time. In this chapter, we will explore strategies for maintaining your Conlang, expanding it to meet new needs, and keeping it vibrant and functional. We'll also look at the challenges you might face as your language grows, and how to keep your Conlang a relevant and evolving creation. 1. Keeping your Conlang alive. A common challenge for Conlang creators is maintaining the language once it has been developed. Over time, it can be easy to lose interest or let your Conlang fade into the background. However, there are several strategies to help keep your language vibrant and continually growing. Set regular development goals. Treat your Conlang like any other creative project by setting regular goals for its development. These goals could range from creating new vocabulary, expanding grammar rules, or writing short stories in the language. Having small, manageable goals ensures that you don't get overwhelmed and keeps you motivated to work on your language regularly. For instance, you could aim to add 20 new words to your lexicon every month, complete a short story or poem every few weeks, write a new set of sentences to practice specific grammatical structures. Keeping your conlang alive means regularly engaging with it in a purposeful way, whether through linguistic experimentation, writing practice, or translation exercises. Write regularly. One of the best ways to keep your conlang alive is to use it regularly in writing. Whether it's short stories, poems, dialogues, or world-building descriptions, writing in your language helps you think about its practical application and uncovers gaps that might need attention. The more you write, the more you'll find opportunities to expand your language. Consider writing short stories or narratives, dialogues or skits that use conversational language, letters or journal entries in your conlang, translations of songs, poems, or famous works of literature. These writings not only keep your conlang alive, but also serve as useful educational resources for others who are learning it. Create content with your conlang. Expanding the practical use of your conlang is a great way to maintain it. If your conlang is functional enough, try using it in different creative projects. This could include songs or music, write lyrics, or create musical compositions in your language. Games. Develop a game or puzzle that incorporates your conlang, allowing players to learn it interactively. Videos or films. Produce short films, animations, or skits where characters speak your language. This is especially effective if you want to see your conlang used in dynamic and natural situations. The more you use your language in creative works, the more deeply integrated it will become into your world building and storytelling. 2. Expanding your conlang. Once your conlang has reached a certain level of maturity, you may want to expand it in order to explore new ideas or meet evolving needs. Languages grow organically over time, and the same can be said for your conlang. Here are some ways to expand and evolve your language. Adding new vocabulary. As you continue to engage with your conlang, you may encounter new concepts, objects, or phenomena that require vocabulary. In many languages, vocabulary expansion happens naturally as people need to express new ideas. Likewise, you might need to add words related to emerging technologies, social changes, or new cultural contexts within the world of your conlang. Strategies for expanding vocabulary. Borrowing and adapting words. Borrow words from existing languages, either as loanwords or as inspiration for new terms. Word formation. If your conlang has a system of derivational morphology, prefixes, suffixes, infixes, you can generate new words by combining morphemes to create compound words or derivatives. Context-specific vocabulary. If your language is used in a specific cultural or fictional context, think about the specific needs that might arise in that context, e.g., military terms, technological vocabulary, terms for seasons, etc. Developing dialects or variants. In real-world languages, dialects evolve naturally over time due to geographic or social divisions. You can replicate this phenomenon in your conlang by creating regional dialects or alternate forms of your language. Dialects can develop differences in vocabulary, pronunciation, or grammar, and can help add richness and variety to your language. Geographical variations. Imagine that speakers of your language are spread across different regions with distinct climates, landscapes, or cultures. These differences might influence the language in interesting ways. Social distinctions. In some cases, dialects develop due to social classes, professions, or communities. Consider how different subgroups might speak the language differently. New grammatical features. As your language develops, you might find that you need to introduce new grammatical structures to express more complex ideas. You may want to refine or adjust existing grammar. Over time, you may find that certain grammatical features need clarification or adjustment to make them more functional. Introduce new tenses, moods, or aspects. You might decide to add additional verb forms to express subtle distinctions of time, intent, or certainty. Create new sentence structures. For example, you could explore alternative word orders or constructions that allow for different nuances in meaning. Every time you expand your language's grammar, It opens up new ways to express ideas and thoughts, making your conlang more versatile and engaging. 3. Documentation and record keeping. As your conlang grows and evolves, it becomes more complex, which means keeping track of all the changes and additions becomes essential. Well-organized documentation ensures that you can easily reference the rules, vocabulary, and structures of your language, and helps others learn it. Maintain a centralized document. Keep a master document or database that includes all the grammar rules, vocabulary lists, examples, and cultural context. Organizing this information will help you reference it easily and ensure consistency as your language grows. You can use word processing programs, e.g., Google Docs, Microsoft Word. These allow for easy editing and updating. Language-specific software. Some conlangers use specialized software like Polyglot or the Conlang database, which allow for structured organization of vocabulary and grammar. Spreadsheets. Spreadsheets are great for keeping track of word lists, conjugations, and other elements. Regularly update and revise. Revisit older sections of your documentation regularly to ensure they remain consistent with new developments in your language. If you add new vocabulary or adjust grammatical rules, update your documentation to reflect these changes. Use consistent terminology. Establish a system of terms to describe the various elements of your language, e.g., noun class versus gender, mood versus tense. This consistency will make it easier to describe your language's features and prevent confusion as you add new rules or words. 4. Responding to challenges. Maintaining a conlang is not without its challenges. As your language expands and more people learn about it, you may encounter some obstacles. Here are a few common challenges and ways to address them. Avoiding overcomplication. It's easy to get carried away with adding layers of complexity to your conlang, especially as you discover new linguistic features. However, it's important to avoid making your language so intricate that it becomes difficult for learners to understand or for you to maintain. Keep the core principles of your language consistent and focus on clarity. If you add new features, ensure they serve a practical purpose and improve the overall function of your language. Balancing realism and functionality. Conlangs can easily become too realistic, mimicking natural languages to such an extent that they lose their function as a constructed language. Remember that conlangs often serve specific purposes, such as storytelling, world building, or artistic expression. If you're making a language for a fictional world, ensure it remains practical and coherent within that context. Don't sacrifice functionality for excessive realism. Managing community feedback. As more people discover your language, you may receive suggestions or criticism from learners, fellow creators, or conlang enthusiasts. While feedback can be invaluable, it can also become overwhelming. Be selective about the feedback you incorporate, and remember that your language is your own creation. Use feedback as a tool for improvement, but don't feel pressured to make every change suggested by others. 5. Long-term growth. A conlang can be a lifelong project, evolving as your interests and abilities grow. In the long term, you may want to take your language into new territories or explore different uses for it. Here are a few ideas for the future of your conlang. Use in media. If your conlang has a strong cultural or fictional basis, consider expanding its use in books, movies, games, or comics. These media can allow your conlang to reach a larger audience and further develop its functionality. Teaching the language. If you've developed a strong understanding of your conlang and feel confident in its usability, you might teach it to others through online courses, textbooks, or even live workshops. Teaching can be a rewarding way to deepen your own understanding and inspire others to learn your language. Collaborative world building. If your language exists in a broader fictional universe, invite others to contribute to the world building process. Allow them to create characters, cultures, or stories that use your conlang, further expanding its usage and significance. Conclusion. Maintaining and expanding your conlang is a continuous process that requires dedication and creativity. By setting goals, documenting your progress, and responding to feedback, you can ensure that your language grows in a meaningful and purposeful way. As your language evolves, it becomes not only a tool for communication but a living, dynamic project that can serve many creative and practical purposes. The next chapter will explore how to preserve the legacy of your conlang and keep it relevant for future generations of speakers and learners.